Welcome everybody, this is John Miller at Produce Pro. We are just in the process of getting set up here. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. Please stand by. Good afternoon, everybody. This is John Miller, New Products Development Manager at Produce Pro. I've got a room full of people here in Chicago. Today, we're going to be walking you through the Produce Pro Hours of Service solution. For purposes of the webinar today, I wanted to just make sure everybody recognized that everybody is muted so that we can get through the material. We do have the ability with the webinar interface to allow you to post questions online. I will be monitoring this as I turn it over to Faraz to actually walk you through the demonstration of the solution. So we'll be doing our best to monitor on our end and try to get you questions as we go. However, we will open it up to Q&A at the end of the discussion here. We are also recording the presentation here today, and once we're done with this, we'll get that packaged up. I'll work with Mark to get this posted on our website so that in case you want to review it, or if there's anybody in your organization that was unable to attend, they will be able to see the material from the recording of the demo. So what we're going to go over today, just in terms of the agenda, is we're going to give a quick overview of some of the highlights of the FMCSA regulations, kind of our interpretation and understanding around that, key deadlines, those types of things. We'll talk to you a little bit about the progress that we've made against our solution, where we're at in terms of our project here, give you a quick update on that, go through the demo, obviously. Then we'll talk about next steps in terms of how you can get involved with what we're doing here to solve your problems. And then obviously we'll open up the Q&A at the end here. And as I mentioned, if there are any questions or if there's anything that you want us to try and cover, please take a look at the interface that you have for the webinar. It should provide you with the means to raise your hand and ask a question. And like I say, we'll do our best to try and answer those as we go. So the FMCSA mandate that's coming down this year basically is requiring electronic logging devices to be used by any commercial drivers who are currently required to prepare hours of service records of duty status. So our understanding of some of the key triggers for what means or what says that you have to comply with this are things like interstate commerce, so when you're crossing state lines. Certainly long hauls are considered under the purview of this legislation here, so anything where you're traveling beyond 150 miles, air miles. And then also it talks about gross vehicle weights of anything over 10,000 pounds. That's our understanding. We have a pretty good understanding of what is and what isn't required here, but I certainly encourage everyone to review your particular situation with your compliance guidance, auditors. We don't want to be the only place that you're turning to. We're happy to guide and provide our understanding of things, but you know, please make sure you understand your particular situation because everyone's in a little bit of different boat with this. And all of this goes into effect as of December 18th, 2017. So if you are currently required to keep paper logs, you are going to need to have the ability to keep those logs electronically as by December 18th. So on the following Monday, you are open to being inspected by law enforcement, and they will expect that you can provide an electronic proof of record of duty status. So what is Produce Pro doing about this mandate that's staring us in the face? So we already have the driver app solution. So what we've done is we've expanded on top of the driver app solution, and we've built a product that will be in full compliance with the hours of service mandate here. We've got effectively two separate products. You can have the driver app. You also can only have the hours of service solution. We certainly recommend bundling the two of them together because there are some efficiencies to be gained by using them in concert. But I do want to make sure that people are clear that it can be thought of as an independent product from the driver app here. We have also forged a partnership with a company called Wireless Links to use their BlueLink product to provide a direct connection to the ECM on your trucks. The driver app devices will connect via Bluetooth connection to the Wireless Link product to provide us real-time information about odometer readings, when the vehicle's in motion, hours of use, those types of things, all of the components that are going to be required for you to be compliant per the FMCSA regulation. We are also in the tail end of a pilot program with two of our current driver app customers with larger fleets. We've gone through the initial setup, and we're in the process of finalizing testing with them and hoping to finalize that by the end of this month with the intention of starting to roll out to customers come October. So that's kind of an overview of where we're at. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Faraz. Are you ready to take it away?
Yep.
Okay, so Faraz is going to walk you through the solution here. And as I had mentioned before, we're monitoring for questions. So if you have any that come up, type them into the box, and we'll do our best to get them answered as we go. Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so up on the screen right now is the first thing you'll see when you launch the driver app with hours of service. So what this is showing you is any blue links in range so that you can connect to the one connected to the truck. So like John mentioned earlier, the blue link is just a separate piece of hardware that connects directly into the truck's diagnostic port, and then we communicate with that over Bluetooth to get engine data like the speed, the odometer, engine hours, and we're constantly communicating with that. So you just go ahead and tap on the blue link that matches the truck, connect to it, see a quick picture of the blue link right here. This is the correct one. You just hit accept, and that takes you to the login screen. So once you just create a login in Produce Pro for this driver, just type in their username and password, hit login, and this takes you to the logging info screen. So this is what the driver gets when they log in. They need to set kind of basic header info for the day. They've got at the top what blue link they're connected to again, and if they need to change device, they can hit that change device button. Below that, we've got the VIN that we're reading from the blue link, and then under that, you've got kind of your header data. So if you've got trips in Produce Pro assigned to this driver already, we pull that data in, and you can kind of just see that this one's already filled in from trip 10273. You can tap on that trip if you want to change it, if you have multiple trips for that driver. And the driver can also go into manual entry if they want to edit some of this data. Now, the driver is required to be able to do that, so I know some people like to lock it down, but they have to be able to change it if they want. So once the driver sees all this data and confirms it, they just hit that save button at the top right, and that kind of sets their logging info for the day. When they do that, we pull in their whole history for their cycle, the previous 7 or 8 days, depending on what cycle they're in, and it pulls it all right into the app so that the driver can access it later if they want. So now this gets us to the main screen in the app. So like John mentioned, we have the driver app and the hours of service app, which kind of work together, but they can be independent as well. So right now you're kind of seeing them both together on one screen. So across the top, we've got what we call the hours of service toolbar. So this is where the driver goes to see kind of a quick overview of their current duty status and their hours remaining in different categories. So starting at the left, we've got off, which is telling them they're currently off duty. Then to the right of that, you've got their hours remaining until they need to take a break. To the right of that, they've got their driving hours remaining. To the right of that, they've got their on-duty hours in the shift that's remaining. To the right of that, they've got their on-duty hours in the cycle. And then to the right of that, they've got the hours they would have tomorrow if they dropped off the first day in their cycle. So kind of a prediction ahead of time if they want to be able to know what tomorrow would look like if they were to stop driving right now. Then all the way to the right, those two black circles are the diagnostic and malfunction indicators. So if something is going wrong in the app, if we don't have a GPS signal, we can't communicate with the blue link, something is not working properly, those will light up and the driver can see that and know that something's not working properly. They can go in a little bit later and see more details about what's not working exactly. So the top one will be the diagnostic, will light up yellow, and the one below that will light up red for the malfunctions. Now, under that, you've got to the left these three little lines. That opens the hours of service menu. So if you just tap on that, this little menu slides out. And this is kind of where all of the hours of service features of the app live. I'll go through all of these in a little bit, but just a quick header info, quick heads up of where it is. You can just tap out of it to close that. You can also at any time while you're in the driver app, the regular features of the driver app, just take your finger from the left-hand side and just swipe it out to bring up that menu again. So the rest of this is kind of just basic driver app stuff, which we're not going to go into too much detail because that's a whole separate thing, but you've got the trip that's in Produce Pro. The driver can just go into that, start their trip like they would be, and they see the stops, and this is all their regular delivery management aspects of the driver app. So if the driver is now going ahead and start their day, they can go in and want to change their duty status. They can just tap at the top of the screen to go into their duty status overview screen. So this kind of gives them a bit more details of their hours of service duty status. So you've got the name of the driver, what rule they're following, the 7 or 8 day rule, and then below that you've got the hours remaining in all the categories again with a little bit more detail. And then under that, you've got if there are any current violations that are active, so if they've gone over their hours somehow. And then under that, you've got if there's any diagnostics active or malfunctions active. So if any of those two lights in the top right corner, the yellow and the red ones are lit up, the driver can just tap on there and can see exactly what's going wrong. Now at the bottom here, you've got the duty status change buttons. So the driver will see that the orange highlighted one is their current duty status, and they can just tap on any of the other ones to change. So if I go ahead and tap on the on duty, that one gets highlighted orange, and now also at the top left, you see that it says on now. So the driver's gone ahead and changed their duty status. They can just hit this little back arrow, and they're back to the regular driver app features. So at any point, the app can just switch between the HOS features and the driver app features, and you just hit back and go back and forth between them very easily. So now the driver's heading out on their day, and the vehicle starts to move. So I've got a simulator here, which you can't see, which simulates a truck. So I'm going to go ahead and simulate that the truck has begun motion. And so what happens is we're required to disable all input when the vehicle is in motion. And if you notice at the top left, the status is now D because the driver is now driving. So we automatically detect that from the blue link, and we automatically change their status for them and disable all input. So once they get to their stop, they can go ahead and stop the vehicle, just simulating that. And once the vehicle stops, the input comes back, and they can continue using the app. So let's go ahead and open that hours of service menu. So looking at the top here, you've just got the driver name, the truck ID that they're using, and then the set info button. So this is where they would go if they want to change their info that they set when they first logged in. So it just takes you right back to that screen again. So if you're changing trips throughout the day, or you want to switch blue links or trucks, you can come and do that here. So I just head back, bring up the menu again. Below that, you've got again what their current duty status is, and if they tap on that, it just takes you to that duty status overview screen again, similar to just tapping at the top. Open that up again. And below that, you've got the daily view. So this is where the driver would go to view a day-by-day view of their records and their history. So if I hit that, that takes you to this current day's view. So at the top, you've got your driver profile. So if you have multiple drivers logged into the same device, you can just tap on the driver profile and switch between them just to open this drop-down. If you have any unidentified records, so if we detected any motion or something happened through the engine on blue link connection, it was recorded as unidentified because no one had logged in yet, and the driver can go and view those records and claim them if needed. Next up under that, you've got the date switcher. So you can just hit the arrows to go left and right between dates, or you can tap on that date to bring up a calendar view to quickly jump between the dates. So you don't jump to that one. Next up under that, you've got a little issues section. So if there's anything missing with the record, or if a violation occurred on that date, it would be listed here. So this one says the driver needs to certify it. So we'll get to certification in a minute. And then under that, you've got the graph of the driver's duty status for that 24-hour period. So across the left-hand side, you've got the 4 different duty statuses again. So you've got off-duty, sleeper berth, driving, and on-duty not driving. And then across the top and bottom, you've got the hours of the day running. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the total hours spent in that specific duty status. So kind of gives the driver a quick way to see throughout the day, like for example, on this day, between about 12 a.m. and 6 a.m., the driver was off duty. So you've got the totals of each little section on top of it in the green. And if you need to, it's sometimes a little hard to see all the hours when it's fully zoomed out. You can actually just take 2 fingers and pinch out to get a little bit more granular with the time. And then just take another finger and kind of just swipe across to go throughout the whole day. Then take another 2 fingers and just pinch back in to zoom all the way out. So next, under those, you've got the info, certify, and add button. So these are kind of the action buttons to do on this screen. So the info button takes you to the header info screen to see all the kind of detailed information about the driver and the record for that day. So if I hit that, you've got things like the driver name, the date, co-driver, department transportation number, driver's license, what time their 24-hour period is set to start, the ID, ELD ID, the software manufacturer, truck VIN. So any kind of header information about that day, it's all lives in here. Hit back at the top. To the right of that, you've got the certify button. So the driver is required to certify their records. So once they believe their records are complete and correct, they can hit that certify button to mark that record as certified. So that creates a special type of event called a certification event that kind of seals the record. But if the driver then makes any changes afterwards, it will uncertify itself, and then the driver will be required to recertify it. So if I go ahead and just hit agree here, that record is now certified, the issue goes away, and the certify button is now grayed out because I can't certify again. To the right of that, there's the add button. So this is where the driver goes to manually add an event if for some reason they forgot to do something or something didn't work properly. So they hit that, and it takes them to the screen so they can set the date, the time, what type of event it is, so if it's a duty status change or a special status change, and then they can select the code just by tapping on there, get the drop down between all the statuses. So let's just go ahead and say at 6 p.m. I was actually driving, put in a quick comment saying I forgot, and hit save at the top right. So now that added a special status or a manual status change at 6, created a couple issues, but I can go ahead and actually add another status change. Let's say at 7 p.m. I actually went off duty. I also forgot to add this one in. Go ahead and hit save, clear that up. But now because I modified the record for that day, I need to recertify. So I can just go ahead and hit that. And now that record's complete again. So under those buttons, you've actually got a table of all the events that contribute to that day's record. So you've got the time, the location that the event occurred based off the GPS on the device, the odometer mileage that we got from the blue link, the engine hours that we got from the blue link, the type of event, and then the origin. So the origin tells you kind of what source the event came from, and it can be one of 4 things. It can be either automatic, it can be from a support person, so someone in the back end can set a request, send a request to the driver if they notice something wrong with their records, and then the driver can approve or reject that request on the device. It can be unidentified, so if the driver claimed an unidentified record, the original event was unidentified, so that would be the origin. And then it can come from the driver themselves. If they manually added an event like I did earlier, it would just be a driver origin event. So the driver can then just scroll through those events, and as they scroll, they get a little bit more room. The top 2 bars kind of hide, and they can see all the events for the day, and then if they scroll back up, the top 2 bars come back if they want to change things. If you tap on any of the events, you can actually go into the details. So this is the manual status that I added earlier. Go ahead and tap on that. It just takes you back to that edit add screen again, so you can change any details here and hit save again if you need to. Go ahead and hit back. So let me go back one more day here. Now on this day, the text is actually highlighted in this magenta color. And if you notice, there's a little bit of a magenta line on the graph. So what that tells you is that there is a requested change from a support personnel on the back end for that day. So the driver can kind of, if they want to zoom in and see, the orange line is their original and their current duty status graph. And then the magenta line shows how it would be after the change if they accepted it. And then if they go down to their event list, scroll down, similarly, they've got this magenta colored event, which is the requested change with the origin coming from the support personnel. And then they've got their original duty status change that's highlighted in orange. So if they tap on that request, they'll get their option. Do they want to accept or reject it? So if I accept this change, then the 3:19 p.m. off-duty status change that the driver had put in becomes inactive, and then this 2:57 one that's from the support personnel becomes the active one. Let me go ahead and hit that. Now the graph has gone back. There's no more magenta. And if we go down, the 2:57 one is there, but then that 3:19 one is gone, or 3:27. So the driver has to approve or reject any changes to their records, but they can just do that by looking at their daily view in the app. Let me go ahead and hit back. Bring up the menu again. So now under that, we've got the weekly view. It's grayed out right now because that's actually still currently under the development. And that will just give the driver a quick overview of their entire cycle, and they can just tap on the days in the week for their cycle to jump right to it. It's not required by law to have that, but we thought it would be a good feature to add in, so we're still currently working on it. And then below that, you've got the law enforcement export. So this is where the driver would go when they are pulled over by a law enforcement officer and they ask to see their records. So if they just hit that, this takes them to this export screen. So there are two main types of exports, which is the web and the email export. So the officer would tell the driver to enter either a special routing code, or if they tap on the email, an email address, and then the driver just hits this export button at the bottom to export their cycle, the data for their cycle, to that officer, who can then look at it on whatever device the officer is using. But if they don't want to do that and they perhaps just want to quickly view the records on the device, the driver can just hit view on screen and then hand their device over to the officer, and the officer can then basically get into a version of the daily view that is read-only, so nothing can be changed, and they can only go through and see, if I keep hitting those back arrow, the days for their current cycle. So they can't see the entire history for that driver, but they can see the cycle. And then tapping on the events does nothing. Nothing can be edited at this point. It's just for the officer to view the records, not change anything. Let me go ahead and hit back. Bring up that menu again. Below that, we've got this add event button. So this just takes you to that same add event screen, so the driver can quickly add an event manually for the current day. They can change the date if they want, but instead of jumping through the daily view and finding a day and then hitting add, they can just quickly come in here if they want to add something manually and they know where they want to add it. Another thing I want to mention is, if you see all the way at the top, there's a tiny little driver app logo. So while you're connected to the blue link, if you swipe down and bring up your notifications, you'll see this little driver app ELD one kind of in the middle. And if the driver swipes down on that and expands it, they'll see kind of the vehicle state and the data coming from the blue link. So we've got what the vehicle stopped, what the speed is, the odometer value we're getting, the engine hours, and the VIN. So the driver can quickly glance there and see what data is being communicated from the blue link. Now that's just about it for all the HOS features. Again, it's combined with the regular driver app, so the driver can easily switch back and forth between them. We've designed it to meet all the regulations set forth by the FMCSA. So I know a lot of these things are required to allow the driver to edit and manually modify things. It's done by design, it's a requirement that way, but we should be good with that. That's about it.
And one thing that I do want to add, I'm sure you touched on it a little bit here. I was trying to answer some questions as they were coming in. So in addition to what you've seen on the app that works on the devices that's in the driver's hand, there is a complete support mechanism on the back end within Produce Pro. So you'll have the ability to run reports on this. You'll also have the administrative functions on there. So obviously if a supervisor needs to go in and enter information or modify information that was entered, say, erroneously, or if a driver forgot to put information, it can be entered on behalf. And then as Faraz showed you earlier, the driver will still have to go in and ultimately approve their time. That's per the regulation. But Produce Pro will have the full support mechanism on the back end to store the information and allow for the administration and maintenance of the data as well. As far as next steps with us, so we've talked about the process that we've gone through, and we've shown you what we've built here, but ultimately we've begun a registration process with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and we're in the process of certifying our solution. So ultimately packaging up our solution to be a certified and registered solution with them. And as I mentioned earlier, we are working with 2 customers to pilot this. We're testing that right now. We've got devices configured and installed, and we're working to test out, to work out the bugs and the kinks in the system here, with our goal here to start rolling out to customers that have signed up already, starting in early October. So now I want to talk a little bit about what our next steps are in terms of the grander calendar. Obviously, this mandate and deadline is staring us in the face here as we look at the middle of December, really not that far from us. So what we're looking to do coming out of this conversation, now that we've created some additional awareness for our customers, is we do want to start to work through getting people signed up, understanding who's affected by this, who needs to have a solution in place, who needs our help, and trying to get customers scheduled so that we make sure that we can help you meet all of these deadlines. So we've got a couple of things that are in front of us here. Talking about pricing and promotions here. So in terms of the project, much like any other add-on that we have within Produce Pro, we are going to have some work to retrofit a lot of new code that didn't exist before, that we've just created for this solution here, to retrofit that to your system. There's a training component to this, and then obviously we need to test it with you and make sure that it's working properly. There is also, I mentioned that we partnered with a company called Wireless Link. So there's the Blue Link devices and the cabling. So there is a bit of a process to go through to get that equipment ordered, to get the right cabling that fits the right protocol for the different types of equipment that you might have. J1939, J1708, OBD2, different makes and models in different years require different cabling. So we'll work with you. The intention is for us to be your one-stop shop for the entire solution. So we'll gather the requirements for that equipment, and then we'll work with the vendor to get that to you. And then in terms of pricing for this, we've got a little bit different model for this. We are going to be charging a monthly subscription, small monthly subscription for each device or vehicle that's involved with this. So right now, the pricing on that is $12 a month. We are offering a promotion if we can get some people online to commit to this by the end of the month. We're offering a couple of $1 a month discounts, so that'd be only $10 a month per device or vehicle. But in terms of getting you final pricing, everyone's retrofit's going to be a little bit different process. We are asking that you reach out to your account managers to start some of that conversation, or you can reach out directly to me. I'll work with the account managers to get you what the project would look like and starting to get people committed to this. But ultimately, we're hoping to have a lot of commitments in place by the middle of October. As I mentioned, the dates are barreling towards us here. We want to make sure that we're going to be able to make those deadlines. So we would really like to have people lined up by the middle of October. We did have one question here come through that I haven't had a chance to answer here. The question was the app changing from on duty to driving status when the vehicle starts moving. Will the app change the driver back to on duty when the vehicle starts? So in a nutshell, the idea here is that now that we can communicate directly with the ECM, we do know when the vehicle is moving and when it's not. So we do have the concept of if I'm on duty but not driving and it senses that it's driving, it will prompt you. The mandate requires us to prompt you before it automatically moves things into statuses. And then after a certain period of time, it will automatically move you. Likewise, once you've stopped and you're not driving anymore, if you're in a driving status, for us, correct me if I'm wrong here, that's right?
Yeah, so after 5 minutes, if the vehicle has been stopped, we're required to prompt the driver to change their status, and then if a minute passes and they haven't responded or they've changed their status at that point, then it automatically will change them back from driving to on duty. So when the vehicle starts moving, they always automatically change to driving immediately, but then when it stops moving, 5 minutes, you have to prompt them, and then if they don't respond to that prompt, then it will change automatically back to on duty.
Okay. We covered everything you wanted to cover?
I think so.
Okay. I am going to open it up to Q&A now. I'm gonna actually stop the recording because we wanted to kind of keep the first part of this clean here. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A. I'm going to unmute mics. There are 34 people on here, so there may be a little bit of chaos. We'll do our best here to try and hear. We may need you to repeat some questions, but so bear with me 1 second here.